Elara stepped off the bustling street, the fog swirling around her like a soft, gray blanket. Inkwell Lane stretched before her, a narrow passage lined with Gothic architecture that had seen better days. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension as she approached her new flat, the weight of her dreams pressing on her shoulders. She could almost taste the artistic energy of the city, yet shadows of self-doubt flitted through her mind, whispering of her struggles as a painter. The flat was a marvel, despite its crumbling walls and faded grandeur. As she unpacked her belongings, a chilling breeze brushed past her, eliciting a shiver that made her pause. Dismissing it as mere nerves, she continued unboxing, determined to fill her new home with vibrant colors. Yet the feeling lingered, as if the building itself breathed with secrets, waiting for her to unlock its mysteries. Little did she know, the whispers of the past were soon to entwine with her own story. As Elara settled into her new flat, the silence enveloped her like a heavy blanket, broken only by the occasional creak of the old building. Each night, she would lay in bed, her mind racing with thoughts of the vibrant city outside, yet a nagging unease lingered in the air. Strange occurrences began to plague her. Pages of her sketchbook would flutter as if touched by an unseen hand, and shadows danced in her peripheral vision, vanishing when she turned to look. Frustration mounted as she battled a fierce creative block, her brushes untouched and canvas blank. One afternoon, while rearranging her things, she discovered a fading photograph tucked between the floorboards. An image of a young poet, dark-haired and brooding, with a name that echoed in whispers, Gideon. Intrigued, Elara felt a pull toward his story, an unvoiced connection, igniting a spark of curiosity within her. As Elara explored the winding streets of London, the whispers of Inkwell Lane lingered in her mind, prompting her to delve into the life of the enigmatic poet Gideon. She frequented local cafes, where the scent of fresh coffee mingled with the musty air of history. Each conversation revealed pieces of his story, a man whose passion for poetry was overshadowed by tragedy. The barista, with a distant look in his eyes, recounted how Gideon disappeared one fateful night, leaving only fragments of unfinished verses behind. Intrigued and sympathetic, Elara began to see reflections of her own struggles within his tale, as she navigated the uncertainties of her artistic journey. With determination bubbling inside her, she resolved to piece together Gideon's past, seeking not only the truth of his mystery but also the understanding that could potentially unlock her own creative block. This newfound purpose ignited a spark within her, urging her to uncover the layers of a tormented soul. The evening air was thick with anticipation as Elara sat in her dimly lit flat, the early dusk wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. Just as she began to lose herself in her sketchbook, a haunting melody filled the room, echoing softly, drawing her attention away from her art. Intrigued and compelled, she followed the sound, moving cautiously toward the corner where a weathered typewriter stood under a dust-laden window. As she approached, the melody shifted, intertwining with the rhythmic tapping of keys, and she gasped as she saw the typewriter's keys moving as if guided by unseen hands. Words began to form on the blank page, verses flowing seamlessly, each line resonating with an aching familiarity. The poetry was unmistakably Gideon's, his spirit speaking through her, igniting a flicker of inspiration deep within her soul. Elara felt a shift. This was more than an eerie experience. It was a call to uncover the heart of his tragic story. Elara found herself entranced by the poems that the typewriter had mysteriously crafted, each verse revealing a profound ache that mirrored her own struggles. Sitting at the small, weathered table, she could almost feel Gideon's presence wrap around her like a ghostly embrace. The melancholic tales of love and despair tugged at her heartstrings, resonating deeply with her unexpressed fears as an artist. With each line, she began to visualize the colors and forms that encapsulated his pain, inspiration swelling within her like a tide. The shadowy corners of her mind, previously filled with doubt, transformed into a vivid canvas alive with possibilities. As she painted, she poured not just her own emotions, but also Gideon's agony into each brushstroke. The connection deepened, intertwining their fates, as Alara realized that through his words she had discovered a reservoir of creativity waiting to be unleashed. In that moment, she felt less alone, bound by an unseen thread of shared experience and longing. As days turned into weeks, Alara's connection with Gideon deepened, the lines between their realities blurring with each whispered message from the typewriter. It was as if he was guiding her hand, prompting her to explore uncharted territories of emotion in her art. Each time she sat before the canvas, his presence enveloped her, steering her brushstrokes with remarkable precision. The flickering lights would pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, and she could feel Gideon's yearning echoing in her own soul. It was unsettling, yet liberating, as if she were channeling the very essence of his spirit. Late one night, as a storm brewed outside, she was compelled to paint a vivid scene of a heart engulfed in shadows and fragmented dreams. Gideon whispered verses that flowed through her mind, inspiring her to create something raw and beautiful, art that captured the sorrow of longing and the hope of reconciliation, bridging their two worlds forever. Alara's heart raced as she carefully opened the faded, leather-bound notebook she had discovered hidden within the depths of the dusty drawer. Each page was filled with Gideon's elegant script, a testament to his tortured artistry. The words leapt off the page, almost alive, pulling her deeper into the tempest of his emotions. With every poem she read, a visceral connection formed, reflecting her own insecurities and dreams. Gideon's unfulfilled desires echoed her fears. His longing for love mirrored her quest for creative expression. Her hands trembled as she traced the ink with her fingertips, feeling the weight of his desperation and yearning. Each line illustrated a world of heartache, painting a vivid picture of the man who had poured his soul into these verses, seeking recognition that eluded him even in death. Fueled by his haunting words, Alara felt an awakening within her, an unearthing of her own buried passion. Inspired, she longed to give Gideon's voice a new canvas, to honor his legacy through her art. The moon hung high in the London sky, its pale light casting an ethereal glow over Alara's flat as she prepared for the vigil. Candles flickered softly, illuminating Gideon's photograph and the typewriter that had become her haunting companion. Tonight marked the anniversary of his disappearance, a date she had circled on her calendar, feeling an inexplicable pull to honor the poet who'd intertwined his spirit with her own. As she lit each candle, she couldn't shake the feeling that the air around her grew heavier, charged with anticipation. She reflected on Gideon's life and her own struggles in the pursuit of art, each thought like a brushstroke on the canvas of her mind. With a deep breath, she began to speak his name into the stillness, her voice a whisper, filled with longing. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, and a vision enveloped her. Gideon's final moments came alive, desperation, heartbreak, and a yearning for closure that echoed through the shadows, binding their stories together in ways she had yet to comprehend. As the dreary rain pattered against the old window panes, Alara sat in her small living room, contemplating the revelations she had uncovered about Gideon. The stories whispered by the locals echoed in her mind, particularly the love for a woman named Clara, who had never returned Gideon's affections. The weight of unrequited love settled heavily on her heart, mirroring her own past heartbreaks. She remembered her first love, A fleeting connection that had left her feeling just as Gideon must have, haunted and yearning. In that moment, the walls of her flat seemed to close in around her, vibrating with the poet's sorrow. Elara understood that she was not just a vessel for his creativity. Their experiences of longing and loss intertwined, binding them in shared grief. The pain propelled her forward, fueling her desire to express these emotions on canvas, igniting a passion she thought had long been extinguished. Elara stood before her canvas, the brush trembling in her hand as emotions surged through her. Inspired by her connection with Gideon, she immersed herself in the palette of colors that mirrored their shared despair. Each stroke echoed the feelings he had poured into his unfinished poems, and she felt his presence guiding her. As the image began to take shape, a wave of catharsis washed over her. Memories of her own heartaches melded with Gideon's tortured past, creating a hauntingly beautiful mural that spoke of longing and unfulfilled dreams. In the quiet that followed, Elara pondered how to present Gideon's poetry alongside her paintings, an exhibition that would honor his legacy while showcasing her own. Excitement bubbled within her as she imagined the community's response, how these stories of love and loss could resonate with others. This would be more than art. It would be an invitation to heal, drawing them all into the depths of their own creative spirits. Elara sat in the dim light of her studio, the weight of her frustrations palpable in the air. The connection she forged with Gideon had become both a blessing and a burden. His presence, once inspiring, now felt like a chain that tethered her to past traumas. She confronted him, her voice trembling with emotion. "You need to let go of the pain, Gideon. I can't carry it for you any longer." The temperature dropped sharply as Gideon hovered near, his translucent form shimmering with sorrow. "But how can I move on when my heart is bound to her?" he replied, the anguish clear in his voice. Ilara's heart ached for him, for the pain that still held him captive. "We can find a way together," she insisted. Desperate to bridge the chasm between them, tensions flared as they grappled with their artistic souls, stuck between shared grief and the pursuit of liberation. Elara sat at the typewriter, her fingers trembling over the keys as she felt Gideon's presence beside her. Together they began to weave his final poem, merging their voices into a melody of emotion. Each verse that flowed from the typewriter echoed their interconnected pain, the aching solitude of unfulfilled love, the longing for artistic expression, and the bittersweet acceptance of their shared histories. As they wrote, the air thickened with energy, pulsating with feelings that transcended time and space. Elara could sense Gideon's spirit embracing the catharsis of letting go, allowing her to connect with his heartache while simultaneously confronting her own insecurities. With each line, they not only immortalized his story, but also forged a new path for both of them. As the last stanza lingered in the air, Elara felt a profound release. They had created something beautiful and transformative, a bridge between their worlds, a final farewell, and a new beginning. As Elara laid the final strokes on the canvas, a heavy silence enveloped the room, broken only by the fading sound of the typewriter. She felt a profound shift in the air, an acknowledgement of their shared journey. It was time for Gideon to find peace. Emotions surged within her as she sensed his spirit beginning to slip away, like wisps of mist dissolving into the twilight. The final poem, spilling across the page, had woven their hearts together. Bittersweet legacy of love and loss. With each word anchored in truth, Elara's heart ached with gratitude and sorrow. She whispered a thank you, her voice barely audible against the pulse of the night. In that moment, the confines of their separate worlds blurred, leaving behind an unbreakable bond. As Gideon's presence faded, Elara felt an uplifting warmth, his spirit at last unshackled, ready to embrace the peace he had long sought.